Okay. Okay, let's continue with our lecture. Previously, we talked about commensalism. So we explained that the egret and the cows, why the egret is the one that got the benefit, why the cows are the one that is not affected. We also briefly talk about the clownfish and sea anemones. Now we go to neutralism. Neutralism is basically a win-win situation. As I mentioned before, we human beings should also try to strive for neutralism in our work environment. Although, even if we can achieve the neutralism, we may not get equal benefit. One party may get more benefit than the other, but still it is better than losing the opportunity. So even though the benefit may not be equal, we should still strive for neutralism. An example will be insect and flowers. Insect like honeybee, they go to flowers for honey. But at the same time, the pollen will stick on the bee's body, and then the plant will get the pollen, fertilization of the pollen. So it's like a win-win situation. And it also gives you another example about the tree that can provide a home for the ants. But provide the species of ants, and also the tree get benefit because ants provide protection for the tree, for the caterpillars. Cleaning symbiosis. This is a very common example we can see in the natures. In here, it tells you that the fish, a large fish, gets the benefit of cleaning from a small fish here. So small fish clean large fish by removing any parasite in the large fish, but at the same time, small fish get the protection and also supply of food, which is the parasite in the large fish. Of course, the large fish get the benefit of getting rid of the parasite in the body. So it is a win-win situation. Now this is ecological succession. The idea is very simple. It basically, you can put, it's a cycle between extinction and colonization. Or you can just call it a life and death cycle. This ecological succession is very common in LA, especially in LA, because I'll tell you when we get to second succession. The primary succession is basically you have plants, community, they occupy a newly formed area. And like soil formation, it's like developing, let's say, a forest on a piece of land. And it is the primary succession. It's just, okay, normal vegetation. Secondary succession is a little bit different. It is also developing a community or natural vegetation, but it has to be after disturbance. This is the example that I talk about that is very common in LA because we have mountain fire, we have wildfire, we have a mountain fire like every summer. What happens is that the disturbance will be the fire, and then after the fire burn the primary succession, the original vegetation, the forest, then all the nutrients stored in the plant will return to the soil, making the soil very fertile. And then there will be a very rapid growth of the secondary succession at the beginning. And there's a term called pioneer species. Pioneer species, it refers to the first species that start the secondary succession. In other words, so this is the secondary succession in the forest. The pioneer species will be grass. This will be the primary species. And then you can see that after grass, you have low shrubs, high shrubs, then shrub and tree mix, low trees, high trees, and then climax communities. So what kind of pattern you can see in here? What kind of pattern you can see in here? The pattern you can see in here is that the vegetation grows taller and taller. Why is that? Well, remember competition? When the pioneer species is the grasses, when the ground level is covered with grasses, then they have to grow, the grass has to grow taller in order to get more sunlight. That's why eventually you have low shrubs. After low shrubs occupy the ground, then they all need to grow even taller to capture more sunlight. Then you have high shrubs, and so on and so forth. That's why a natural habitat, it will have vegetation that grows taller and taller. But of course, at the ground level, you will still have some grasses, but it will be difficult for, let's say, shrubs to grow under the high tree, because most of the sunlight will be captured and collected by the high trees. So at the ground level, we may still have some grasses, but for other vegetation, it may be difficult. That's why the secondary succession, you will see this kind of pattern. Now, what is climax community? We will talk about different model for that. Remember, at the beginning of today's lecture, we talked about modern ecology. Modern ecology, what does modern ecology study? I summarized it in 3 points at the beginning of the lecture. The first point is that modern ecology developed hypotheses, right? And then the second point is that the modern ecology developed different models. So this is basically the second point of the modern ecology. The third point about modern ecology is to study the distribution of different species. So now we talk about different model of the succession. They develop model to explain succession and predict the future event. That's the most important, predict future event, because when mountain fire occur, then the ecologists want to know what will happen next. So they develop several models. One is called Climax pattern model. Climax pattern model predict that the area will always lead to something called climax community. So what does it mean? So it said that the weather of that area will determine what kind of plants that area will develop. For example, if you have hot and dry weather, you will probably have a desert. But if you have a weather that is warm and with regular rainfall, you may have a grassland. Or if you have more rainfall, then you may develop into forest. So it said that the first assumption is that based on the climate or the weather, you can predict what kind of vegetation it will develop into the climax community. But the exact composition of the climax community may not be the same. For example, you may have a forest, deciduous forest, but the species of the tree or the population of the tree may be mixed. You may have a several population of the tree growing together. So this is the first model, Climax pattern model. The second one is called Facilitation model, meaning that each succession prepare for the next one. For example, grass, they're necessary to develop for the shrub to develop, and then shrub is necessary for the tree to develop. So it is like a prerequisite. So one is the prerequisite of the next one is the prerequisite for the next one. So all these, they are required before the tree can develop. You cannot have grass and then you have tree for the next one. You have to go through all these steps. And then inhibition model means that, colonizing the whole on the stem until they die or damage. So meaning that, okay, if you have already developed a succession, either primary or secondary, they will continue to exist until, okay, let's say the mountain fire starts again, until something happens to have disturbances. Then you may have the tertiary succession. The tolerance model predicts that different plant types can colonize at the same time. So, meaning that in a vegetation, in natural vegetation, you may have more than one species of population. It depends on the random chances. So it's not like, okay, unlike you have human interference, we intentionally plant certain species of trees. Otherwise, it will be a randomized process, just like evolution. And this tolerance model basically reinforces the previous idea that the exact composition of the climax community may not be the same. So this is the tolerance model that we talked about in the previous slides. So that's it for today's lecture.